Today we have with us Marilie Jackson. She is a former teacher and school leader with over 20 years of experience in early childhood and elementary education. She now works as an education consultant and conscious parenting coach as she homeschools her 5-year-old using the Montessori Method.
Hello, everybody. We are here with Marilie Jackson. How are you?
Doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you for being with us. We actually are very excited because you are the first Montessori teacher that we have here at our show. And I love everything that has to do with the Montessori method. I'm actually myself, my mom took us to Montessori school when I was little. And so I'm a little bit familiar with it, but I don't know if everybody that's listening to us is. So if you could just tell us a little bit about what the Montessori method is.
Sure. And I just want to rewind and let you know that I am a Montessori homeschooling mom, but I'm not a trained Montessori guide. I've just
Yes.
studied it extensively on my own. My background is in traditional education, but I also was obsessed with Montessori once I learned about it, so decided to study it independently.
Perfect.
So for those who don't know, I want to just first start with like one of the well, let's see. It was discovered or created by Maria Montessori, who was an Italian doctor a couple of centuries ago, and she developed the philosophy by studying impoverished children, children in asylums, children in slums, and watched the way that they naturally learned and developed her materials, her pedagogy, her curriculum, her the all of the principles of Montessori through observing children and the way they naturally learned. I would say there were a lot of things I could say about it, but one big distinction behind or between traditional learning and Montessori is the fact that in traditional schools, we tend to think of education being one directional from the adult to the child. And, they are just these empty vessels that receive information from the adult. And Montessori really shifts that and having a triad or a triangle where the guide or the teacher, the child and the environment, the prepared environment, play equal roles in the child's education. And coming from a traditional school setting where all of my background for over 20 years has been in that world, to see this shift where, it's not just, we're not just pouring into empty vessels was really amazing to me. And so there's a lot I could say because it's not just about what happens in the classroom. There's a lot of ideas behind it, but that would be a big distinction between it and traditional school settings.
That's right. And what I've also seen about Montessori is their love for independence in the child, right? And from an early age, I would like to ask you when is it? When can they start developing this sense of independence?
So I would say it's really from birth. As surprising as that sounds, that it's not necessarily this idea of I can do things by myself. It's from birth. And as soon as they're mobile, the adult understanding that they're capable, that they are born far more capable than we tend to think that children are. And so from the moment that they are trying to reach for something, when you see them struggle and trying to just roll over and reach for something instead of just giving it to them, let them work toward getting that thing. And so it's not like they are consciously thinking, I'm independent, I can do this thing by myself. It's about the mindset really of the adult of you are raising and are attempting to raise a capable person, someone who believes that they are capable. And so that effort you'll see from Montessori infancy, there are not a lot of vessels that children are put in. They are laid just on a mat or on a blanket on the floor so that they are working those muscles and learning to roll over independent, learning to stand independently, learning to sit up independently. And again, that's more about the mindset of the adult than the baby, but the baby is learning that they are capable. And so really that independence and I can do this with effort and learning perseverance through that effort that we allow them to experience through seeing struggle as productive and not problematic, that really from birth, from the moment that they are attempting to move, you can start to adjust your own mindset that you're raising a capable person. And that leads into the concept I think we more regularly think of as independence.
I think that's amazing because that mindset will probably stay with them as they grow, right? Everything takes effort, everything takes hard work, but I can do it because I am able and I'm capable. I love that word that you keep using, capable, right? So this sense of independence, I believe it's very tied into self-confidence, and that's something that we actually love to talk about here at Tiny Power. We love to talk about the fact that children are worthy. We want them to believe in themselves. Can you tell us how this independence can impact their self-worth and confidence?
Wow. I think, it starts with just believing from a very young age that they are capable. That really, I think children enter the world thinking anything is possible. And we, the adults, are the ones that place limitations on them based on what we've absorbed about the capabilities of children versus the capabilities of adults. And so I think that that productive struggle and learning that I can persevere through things, that these things are not impossible, these are not things for grown-ups, especially because Montessori is big on making things child size and accessible, that the world is for me. And so it really is up to the adult to create a space where the child doesn't feel like they are a little person in this big world, where you create lots of opportunities for them to be their size. So from cooking to grooming to, there's a list of things that they can be involved in day to day, that when you make the effort to make it child size, they no longer feel like they're in our world. They are just
Part of it.
feel that they are contributing members to your household and to the society, not just like burdens, not things that we're just carrying along with us as we do, important adult things, that they are contributing actively from a young age to making the community, your home community, your school community, the environment, the broader community, a place that we all want to be in, that they contribute to that by all of their actions.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you keep saying it's kind of our responsibility, right, to let them. And sometimes that's hard to do that, especially when you're in a huge hurry and they're trying to put their shoes on and you kind of just want to do it for them. Do you have any tips around that?
So as a homeschooler, I think another thing that will distinguish Montessori from other, I guess, like traditional school settings, is that those skills, the practical life skills, are a huge part of Montessori from an early age. And so you're not necessarily teaching it in those rushed moments, that this is actually part of their education, giving them tools like, for instance, trying to get socks on. These actually be on their toy shelf, practical life skills and learning. So even if it was like hair ties, for them practicing to put the hair ties over their toes and to their ankles is practice for getting a sock on, or eventually actually just having a basket of socks right alongside their toys. That this is, Maria Montessori says, play is the work of the child. And children really want to work actively to be contributing members, to be independent, to feel self-sufficient. And so if we see it as only these things that are necessary to practice during transitions, or only in the heat of the moment, that's when it feels stressful. But seeing that because these are things they actually want to accomplish, they will work towards them right alongside of teddy bears or right alongside of other open-ended toys, because it's that interesting to them. They really want to gain this skill, so you don't have to force it. So in terms of that prepared environment, putting things, so right now, for my daughter is almost 5, I have a shoelace tying shoe for her to learn how to tie her shoe on the shelf alongside of her homeschool materials, because that's important. It's not going to just be in the heat of the moment that you have to get this, I'm in a rush. It's ongoing work, it's ongoing practice, and it's just as important and just as fun as playing with your blocks.
Right. Using play as a learning experience. I love that. That's great. I know that you've said a few examples, but I would love to hear a couple more things that they can do on the day to day. And I'm sure parents would love to hear this. You mentioned a list, a little bit of a list of what they can do.
And so it starts with the adults, because as I said, it's not just adult child, the environment is really important. And so in order to make this part of your day to day, setting up your environment, every room where things are accessible and intended for children's use, like there's a yes space in every room. So starting with the bathroom and having step stools so they can access it, to learn how to brush their teeth, to learn grooming, to look in the mirror. I had a step stool, I had a faucet extender, I had a light switch extender, and I had a small a mirror from IKEA, which is bendable so it wouldn't break, below our vanity mirror. So all of those things were accessible from the moment she got up and she could, start to do the grooming. I have a child-sized wardrobe and make sure the hamper is accessible so she could put her own clothes, her own dirty clothes in the hamper so she can access her own clothes with limited options of clothing. 3 shirts, 3 pants, a basket of socks, a basket of underwear, a basket of tank tops, those things. So she has a choice. And this is also supporting executive function where it's not the entire, you don't have access to everything because that's overwhelming for a young child, but here are the things. And so that you can start to teach, choose your underwear, choose your socks, choose your shirt, choose your pants, or choose your skirt. And so they are actively involved with your support, but the choice is there. And again, that's helping to develop organization and those executive functioning skills of making decisions, sorting.
And even them having a voice, right? They feel like they actually have some sort of voice in this adult world.
Exactly, because it's at my level. It's for me. And that was including even a step stool right underneath the light switch in her bedroom. Everything is there for her to have access to, and a mirror at her height that she can look at herself in. Then shifting downstairs, we have more step stools. We have a chair that has like a little ladder at the bottom so that she can sit at the dining room table with us. She has a cabinet with her own utensils and plates and child-sized cups so that she can set her own place at the table. If there's fruit involved, I have child-sized colanders and still a learning tower so that she can rinse her own fruit. All of those, she's involved every step of the way. Something else, and that takes time to get all of those things. It took me months to kind of convert my house to this space because I didn't start Montessori from birth. But keeping them in mind in every space is really helpful. Watering plants is one place that we started that doesn't take a whole lot. It's just, I'm going to let you, most of them were at a height that she could reach. And then cleaning up is a huge one because they are the source of a lot of the mess that we experience in our houses. So having rags accessible at every meal, a little spill, not a big deal. Let's clean it up. Here's we made some crumbs after you ate, having a small broom, a larger one that they can learn to use, or even a child-sized hand broom, or like a mini vacuum, whatever you think that your child can handle. Returning their toys, organizing their toys. And Montessori has everything on trays and baskets. Again, more executive functioning skills of sorting, replacing, restoring, so that what's considered a work cycle, even at play, is we take out the material from the shelf, we play with that thing, we return the material to the basket or the tray, and it goes back on the shelf. And that just becomes the way things are. It can feel rigid for people who haven't experienced that, but for me, and having not started this until she was about 15 to 18 months old, it was better than a giant toy chest of just dumping all the stuff in there. That was chaos for all of us. But that returning the toys, and that is part of it, initially supporting them. This is where this goes. And now where's the empty space on the shelf where we return it? And all of that is part of, I do this by myself, as opposed to you create the chaos and it's the adult's job to restore it. Restoring after every activity is just part of the Montessori work cycle, but becomes part of all practical life skills when it's actually practically happening in our real lives.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
Great. Now I know that you also love conscious parenting, and I think that it's very much connected to it, right? We love like you said, it's a yes space, right? We're not telling them no all this time because we are providing an environment, a yes environment for them. Just if you could tell us a little bit about how kind of your take on conscious parenting, implementing Montessori, and kind of how it helps with your gentle parenting.
It all aligns because both really start foundationally with respect for the child, and seeing a child as a capable, contributing member of our society. Not just a burden who is there to make our lives easier, who has to conform to life to make our lives easier to meet our potentially not developmentally appropriate expectations. With Montessori, you might hear the phrase a lot, we follow the child. You observe, you follow the child. And the same thing with conscious parenting, that when your child is doing something undesirable, a lot of times you start to observe, which is what's going wrong? What do they need? What are they communicating? And that is a huge part of Montessori, is observation. Guides spend hundreds of hours just observing children without intervening, without judgment, without jumping to conclusions and interference. It's observation is huge. And so the same thing with conscious parenting, your child does something undesirable, you're starting to approach with curiosity. What's going wrong? What are they communicating? How can I support them? The child is having a hard time, not they're giving me a hard time. And it takes a level of understanding, and not setting timelines for their development. That's the big thing, is that a lot of people ask me, my kid is showing this behavior. How do I stop it? I've done this thing. They haven't stopped. They keep doing it. How do I stop it? Because we oftentimes want children to move on our timeline for our convenience. I want, like, hitting is a big one. We don't want our kids to hit. Yes, we want to set limits on it, but it is a lack of impulse control. That's what that hitting is communicating, a lack of emotional regulation. Although we can support them and teach it, we can't control the timeline for when that will sink in, for when they can have better control over their impulses, or when they are able to more quickly regulate their emotions. We can't control that. In the same way, Montessori respects the child's individual trajectory for learning. There's not a benchmark of all children should be reading by 5 years old. There's a range. Some children will be reading at 3. That is possible. And some may not read until 6 or 7. And that's all completely within a normal range of development. And so the observation and the responsiveness to the children's needs are where they go hand in hand, and most importantly, just respecting them as humans. And a lot of answers become clear when you ask, oh, how do I address this behavior? That behavior is when we stop separating children into being like a different species that need this type of consequence or response in order to become productive humans. And, in society, when we think, well, what would I need in this moment? What would be a response that would make sense for me? How would I respond to a friend or a spouse or a loved one in this moment? Things start to fall into place. And with the education piece, it is really counterintuitive. Montessori feels very counterintuitive to, usually we're like, they did it wrong, I have to correct it. They have to do this now. I'm going to drill them because they don't get it. But when you practice both simultaneously, just being responsive to your child just really becomes natural, and just taking a beat. Before I respond, let me observe and see what's really happening before I decide what my next action step should be.
Yeah, I like that. It's a really good pathway into gentle parenting. I've learned a lot. I didn't know a ton about Montessori. I knew a little bit, but I've learned a lot, and I know that I need to go home and simplify my child's wardrobe. No, because it does get overwhelming when I let her, because I know it's like you're supposed to let them make decisions, right? And I let her try and choose what she's gonna wear, and sometimes it's like, okay, this is never gonna end. So no, that's super important, and thank you so much for that.
Yes, thank you.
For this last part, we have something called the Tiny 10. And what that is in 10 seconds, we want to hear from you what you think makes a child powerful.
This is a hard one. But I will say it's a combination between their ability to live in the present tense and also the fact that they have not absorbed the limitations and boxes that are deeply ingrained in adults. They see the world as infinite and boundless and has endless possibilities. And I'm almost envious of their ability to live in the present tense and just see the world in ways that we have a hard time imagining because of the boxes that we've created. But their imagination, they can see anything as being possible.
Yeah, I
So
love that.
true. And
Yes.
that's why we can learn so much from them, right? So,
Mhm.
well, thank you so much for being with us. We are so glad that you were able to share with us some of your knowledge. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Tune in for our next episode soon.
Yep, thank you.